Hey everyone, this is Dr. B from Steps to the Future coming to you at this week's Facebook Live. So we are having our college conversation. So you want to be an executive director. People always think it's such an easy job to run a nonprofit. And I'm fortunate enough to have with us this evening our guest, Terri Thomas, who is the executive director of the Vision Resource Center. Terri, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Dr. B.
That's so good. So Terri, I know that you didn't start out as the executive director of the Vision Resource Center. So take us back a little bit to when, to your college days, because that's our conversation, how people went to college and how it moved along their career path.
Well, no, I did not totally start off at the BRC. Back at NC State, I went to college to become a computer programmer. That is what my daddy sent me to college for. That was what I was supposed to do. Well, I got to NC State, and I almost flunked down to NC State because that was not what I needed to do. So about the third year in, I said, Dad, I cannot do it, So I went and I got my major, a double major in business and econ, because he said, look, you got 5 years to get out or the money is cut off. So I said, well, I'll get a double major in economics and business and get a minor in African American studies, because then I got to learn about my heritage, that they didn't teach you in high school. So I got out and I was going to be a banking manager. That was my goal. I was going to work for, at that time, Nations Bank. I was a teller at the bank. I said, I'm going to be a branch manager. Well, the world wasn't really ready for me to be a branch manager. And I said, well, dang, I don't know what it is I'm going to be when I grow up, because my grades were not the best, being it took me 3 years to get in the groove of college, So I said I wanted to be a buyer. And I wanted to be a buyer for clothes. Like, I really loved fashion at the time. And then I found out that fashion buyers only kind of resided in like Ohio or New York, or they weren't really that many of them in North Carolina. So my cousin ran me up on an awesome opportunity to work at Memorex Telex at the time as a manufacturing buyer. So I started a career as a manufacturing buyer. So I have worked at Micron, CMS, John Deere, Pfizer, a lot of pharmaceutical companies. So a lot of people say buyer, oh, you're in sales. Totally not that. A buyer pretty much buys whatever parts that the manufacturer is making or consumables. So that was my expertise level. I was a buyer. And so Dad got sick, and it was like, you got to be at the job. I said, I don't know if I can do both. So I came out on a severance, and one of my church members said, I got a job for you. And I came into the nonprofit world. So it was totally nothing that I had ever been thinking about in terms of being an executive director of a nonprofit. But you think nonprofit, this is kumbaya. People going to love helping people. But when I took my job, it was $25,000 a year part-time.
Oof. Okay.
Cut.
Okay. For people that are just joining us, we're with Terri Thomas, who is the executive director of the Vision Resource Center. And Terri just told us about her journey, how she started out in one major and switched to another. And Terri, I think that's so important, because students now, sometimes they get so hung up on, what am I going to major in? What am I going to major in? And 9 times out of 10, people go into college, they choose a major, and like you did, they realize along the way, this isn't really what I want to do with my life. So you were fortunate in that, you were able to turn that around, to go on and to get a degree, and then use that degree. So folks, make sure you pay attention to that the major isn't necessarily what you're going to do with your life. So keep that in mind. So now you're the executive director of the Vision Resource Center. And as you said, that came about through networking. Someone in your network pointed you in the right direction. So we see right there that networking is an important skill that people need to have as you're job searching and looking to expand your career. So tell me about your early years at the Vision Resource Center. What is it? So tell us about the Vision Resource Center first.
Well, the Vision Resource Center, we work with blind and visually impaired adults and kids. So we do everything to make their life as fruitful as possible and keep them viable citizens. Just because you lost your sight doesn't mean the world has ended. So we at the Vision Resource Center, we try to make sure they have every tool that they need to be as active in society as me and you. So that's it in a nutshell. But those first years, Belinda, we start with 25,000 a year. So a lot of kids I hear now, I'm not gonna make less than 50,000. I got a degree, and I'm not gonna make. Well, I was used to making 80, 90,000 a year, but my dad was ill. I need to be able to take care of him. So I was at home. So I said, I'm going to take this $25,000 a year job, part-time, paying for my own benefits. I made that sacrifice to go into the nonprofit world. It was hard. It was coming in saying, now I got to write grants.
Mm-hmm.
Never wrote one. I have the budget money where the econ piece came into play, right? Business came into play from my degree, but who knew? I had to know how to compromise on some things. Coming from corporate America, I had the double screen, high-end computer and could throw a paper clip in the garbage. Whereas now I'm picking them off the floor and holding on to everything like this, like super, super tight and not spending a lot of money. You had to think, and I'm in an office that's not high tech. It's just bare minimal. It's not that look of executive. So when I first took the job or on the interview, I'm going to back up. When I had the interview for the job, there were members of the board that were actually reading off of a piece of paper the questions. I was like, there's no way in the world I'm taking this job. Because I'm used to the group interview but to tell the students that it may not look like what you think it's gonna look like. Because to fast forward now, my salary has doubled. Still not corporate America's salary, but it allowed me to do the things that I needed to do to be able to keep my personal life together. And it was flexible. It was flexible and helping people. Two things.
That is so good. I love what you said about the students. So families that are watching this, students that may watch this on the replay or watch it live, it's so important that you understand that you've got to earn your dues first. We don't start out at the top. I remember starting out when I started my first year teaching. I remember getting the paycheck. So we got paid every 2 weeks in our school district. And I remember getting the paycheck. And I remember looking at it, and I said to one of my colleagues who had started with me, I said, oh, they must have forgot to pay us for one of those weeks. I said, this has to be only for 1 week. This cannot be a 2-week paycheck. And it was.
I mean, it's something because it was so humbling, the whole transition of it all, because now you become everything. As a small nonprofit, you're the executive director, which means you pay the bills, you pay the employees, you set up the programming, you make sure everything is in accordance to governance because you have a board of directors, like me and you talked about, that are over you or your bosses. So you got to make sure you dot every I and cross every T. You have to go out into your community to let people know that you're running that organization and that they see your face as someone they can trust, because you want them to give you money. So in order for them to give you money, you have to come across as, hey, I'm about my job. You could trust me with your money. I'm going to do what I say I do with the money. And then you have to do that.
Yeah.
You have to follow through and do that. So it's a lot of networking, as you say, and being on top of everything and knowing what you do. Not a lot of faking funds. People say, I can fake the walk. People know when you're real and when you're not,
Yes. And I think that's so important what you said about, well, we just had a little visitor, so we have to get her out of here. She decided she needed to come join in. So for folks that are just joining in, we're here with Terri Thomas, who's the Executive Director of the Vision Resource Center. Terri is giving us a great discussion on what it means to be the Executive Director of a nonprofit, especially going from the corporate world into the nonprofit world. That is certainly a change. Please make sure if you have any questions or comments to throw them out there. those of you that are watching, throw us some emojis, a little bit of love, so that we know that this is of use to you. So, Terri, so one of the things you were saying, you were talking about the networking. How much of your job is actually, pre-COVID, because right now, we can't go out, but I'm sure you're networking in other ways. How much of your job is networking, is talking with people?
I'm going to be honest, at least 70% of it. At least 70%, because you're always out. Even if it's not within job hours, 8 to 5, you may go to Harris Teeter and you're going to see somebody that may want to give you money or has given you money. So you're on all the time. You're on all the time. And I carry this smile. Say you smile all the time because you just don't know where your money is coming from, or if someone's interested in your mission, or just interested in you to get to that mission.
That's so true. That's so true. It's amazing, because I think as we move into this, into our world of almost like branding, it's like you are the face of the Vision Resource Center. So when you talked about, you've got to be ready, you've got to be on all the time. And that's a form of branding. And I think one of the things that I'm hoping students understand as they move through college, as they move through the work world, that you are your brand. We are who we say we are, and that reflects on the work we do, that reflects on the mission of our companies, our work ethic, everything. So thank you so much for saying that, because I think it's really important that people understand that. I mean, because think about it. Are people going to want to donate to your mission, to your Vision Resource Center? They say, man, every time I see that Terri, she's got that grumpy look on her face. I don't know what's going on out there. So no,
that's exactly right.
No, I'm not.
That's exactly right. And dressed professionally, like all of this, people look at you all the time.
Yes.
And you have to carry yourself appropriately. You just don't ever know. I will never forget, I had a television interview, but I thought it was a radio interview with Dr. Shanessa Fenner at Fellow State. I never forget it. And when I tried to find the location of the radio, she said, no, it's a television interview. I had on ripped jeans, t-shirt. I said, oh my God. I said, I was so embarrassed, but I carried it like it didn't matter. But people say, Terri, you did good, but why did you have on those ripped jeans? You have to always be ready.
Yes.
And I just said, hey, I'm going to read. I said, I'm not going to go home and change.
Yes.
But it matters how you look. We need to be presentable in everything that you do, because people are watching. It says something about you. But luckily, enough people knew me to say, oh, probably a bad day or whatever. I made a joke out of it. I said, hey, I thought this was a radio interview. I just took the white elephant out of the room off the top of the interview. So then that made me feel more comfortable. And hopefully other people realize, well, she didn't do that on purpose.
Right. And as you said, because people know you, because your reputation preceded you, they could say, all right, this is just like you said, Terri, having an off day or something. So again, you establish who you were, you establish your integrity. So people did know that, okay, Terri's always about doing her business. So this is just an anomaly here. We're not going to worry about that too much. And I think that's important for students to understand, that there is a certain way you have to carry yourself in the world. That doesn't mean that you're a sellout, but if you're the executive director of a nonprofit, you do have to present an image that matches your mission. And that doesn't mean faking it.
No.
That doesn't mean faking it, because I think what I found from people that work in nonprofits, that they believe in the mission, or else they wouldn't be doing that work. Because like you said, it's not the most high paying of jobs. So, there are, well, around here, people I don't think are getting rich off of nonprofits, get a livable income. But again, it's about the mission. So tell me, so on a typical day, well, I don't know if there is a typical day, but what would a day's activities look like for the folks that come to the Vision Resource Center?
A day could run from anything from greeting people that come in that you don't know or stopping by. That happens a lot. So you have a lot of you have to be non-rigid. As I tell people, you have to be flexible in nonprofit. Nonprofit, you may come in one day and say, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And then you have a participant that may be going through not having food at home or having difficult time with filling out paperwork or whatever. So you stop what you're doing to make sure that you help that person with whatever the need is. But the phones ring off the hook because a lot of our blind people, they're at home alone. So what do they want to do? They want to talk to somebody.
Okay. Yes.
So we do have volunteers in there now. So they help out with that or find out different ways they can go about doing things, whether it be transportation, housing, these types of things. But then we also have behind the scenes programming where we actually schedule programs pre-COVID for the month and making sure those programs are adhered to. People have transportation or rides, that type of thing. Then we also have the paying of the bills. We also have the planning of the fundraisers because with nonprofit land, you have to make money. Money pays your salary. If you don't write the grants, you don't get paid. That's how you're paid, by grants and people giving you money. That's how that works. Also, and then you have to keep the facility clean. Small nonprofits such as us, we don't have a cleaning company, so nothing is beneath you. You do whatever it takes to run your business. I've done everything from pay the money to drive the bus to clean the bathrooms to whatever that is. So know that if you're in certain nonprofits, anything may be asked of you to do to make sure that you're making it run as a well-oiled machine. As all my employees know, we do it all. Whatever the need is, that's what we do. So we have a program and we make sure we set up for it. We make sure we have everything laid out for it before our people get there. Make sure all our bathrooms are clean. Everything is well lit. Nothing is going to hindrance any pass when they're getting in. Safety is the number one key. So that's an average day in a life of is depending on if it's programming or not programming, but it's pretty much consistent, but it may be a little off the beaten path every day. But flexibility is the key and not getting uptight when things are not. Sometimes we can get rigid because out of college, I was very rigid. I was like, gotta be this way, gotta be this way. In nonprofit, it may and it may not be, but it's okay. You have to learn that you can only do as much as you can do, and it's okay to get the job done. And it doesn't matter how it gets done, but that it gets done.
That is so great what you just said, because with the number one thing being that flexibility. And when you're, like you said, when you're a non-small profit, you wear so many hats. I mean, you just mentioned probably about anywhere from 7 to 10 different roles that working in a nonprofit, especially being the director of a nonprofit, that you would have to be prepared for or learn how to do. So one of the things that you talked about was grant writing. I mean, that is huge. I remember folks talking to me, and in my business saying, "Well, maybe you should, become a nonprofit." And I knew I didn't want any part of grant writing because it just looked too daunting for me. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to learn that. So, how did you learn the skill of grant writing?
Now that's a story in itself. When I first started, I didn't know anything about grant writing, so I, quote unquote, hired somebody. Well, I hired this person and they did this and they gave me all these letters and said, mail them. I didn't know any better. Paid them, mailed them. One of my potential funders wrote back. He said, I know you find this a odd letter, but this is how you can make this better. And this is why I'm not funding you. At that point, I said, and I paid over $3,000 for this grant writer with minimal funds. I said, I'm going to learn how to write grants myself. Now, a very good nonprofit in our community is Cumberland Community Foundation. They helped me tremendously with getting my start, and not necessarily helping me with grants, but giving me the tools to go out. And I mentioned his name, John Williams of the Boys and Girls Club. He became my mentor, and he taught me or showed me without reservation on how to get started with writing grants. So that'd be, you have long grants that may be 20 pages long. Then you have the grants that may be a page long. But the biggest thing about grant writing is don't write for things that you know good and doggone well don't have anything to do with your mission just because it's a lot of money.
Right.
Because once you ask for that grant and you get that money, you have to justify or say how you spent that money.
Mhm.
And that money has to be spent as you say it's going to be spent, right? So in order to do the grants, it was pretty much answer the questions and be truthful and honest about them in terms of why you need the money. And they can go anything from your mission to they have your mission. They ask you your objectives, your goals. What do you plan to obtain? 80% of my people will become less isolated. So that's a metric. So you have to meet metrics. You have to do a budget. Not only the budget that the money that they're going to give you, but where you get money from other grant sources. So all this stuff is wrapped into a grant, but you can learn it. It's not that it's that tedious, it is, but it's not that hard once you do it. The biggest thing is finding the funders that believe in your mission or that you can align yourself, associate yourself with the grant to get the money.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's so important because when you said about making sure it aligns with your mission, because sometimes you see these grants that are like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. But when you read into it, as you said, if it doesn't align with your mission, why would you waste your time, first of all, writing a grant that you probably have a good chance of not getting because it doesn't align with your mission. But then at the same time, if you do get the grant, you're accountable. You are accountable, just like you said, for making sure that you have all your metrics in place, that when that evaluation is done at the end of that grant year, that you're able to show how your clients' lives were improved by that grant. So it's important. It's a lot of work that goes into it. And a quick shout out to Don Williams at the Girls and Boys Club. I love it that the Boys and Girls Club that he was a mentor to you and helped you out, because again, it's all about collaboration. We're all in this world together. And anytime somebody takes the opportunity to help somebody out with their mission, it's definitely a win for all of us. So Don, thank you so much for that, because that helped get Terri off to where she needs to be. So one of the other things you talked about was programming. So how do you decide because I know, because you work with folks of all different ages. So how do you decide like what your adult programming will be, for example, for folks that are maybe like 25 and over? But that's such a broad range, because I know you have such a broad range of folks at the Vision Resource Center.
Well, we kind of we have our youth group, which goes from now birth to right at 18, because what you start finding out is 19 and up, they kind of want their own thing. So Monica, my program manager, she started a limitless group. So we call it limitless, like no limits, that kind of thing. So they're 19 to 30. Then we have the 30 and up group. The biggest thing is with any of our programming, we have to make sure that it's something that's audible, that they'll be able to hear with music, dancing, if it's a play. They have adaptive technology for like at Cape Regional Theater when we were going pre-COVID. They had the actual headphones where they would have somebody actually telling everything that went on in the play. So we would go on the assistive devices night that were completely blind, right? And they would make sure that they would see this in a certain area for those with low vision. So we would sit up close. So we would make arrangements well in advance. Like we would already talk to people to make sure we had good seats, whether they had the audible or not, make sure we're not going up a lot of stairs. So everything that we do is pretty much, again, surrounded around safety and making sure that it's enjoyable, because it's nothing like going somewhere. Like one of my Black people said, well, why am I going to the play? I can't see it. I said, well, why don't you come out and try it? They got assistive technologies. Once they went and they had those, it opened a whole other world. Then you instantly think, I can't. It's not going to be fun for me. I'm not going to want to get out at night. So our drivers treat everybody just like they're your mom and dad. We give assistance where needed. So even though it's dark, because someone that can see, it's even scarier for them at nighttime. Because you have some site, that's gone at night. So we make sure that our drivers and our volunteers know how to handle our folks, to make sure they feel safe and a comforted environment, not pulling them along, but having them on the elbow where they hold on, or the shoulder, and talking them through it. Like if it's stairs or a step, even if it's a little bump, like we don't pay any attention to, like you can walk over, but when they feel that bump, they may think it's a stair or a step, so they get real scared. So it's almost like you have to narrate the direction, you know. So I tell my volunteers, don't be scared about blind people. It's not contagious. You just have to narrate them, you know, and they're cool, just like me and you, but you just have to narrate. So the age group doesn't really matter as much as the safe part. We might do Shrek for the kids versus maybe a Denzel Washington movie or Patrick Swayze, whatever, an adult movie or more love story or war. Whereas with the kids, we're more lovey, not as violent, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of the difference, or like a winery for the adults versus McDonald's or pizza for the kids. Like surfing, the kids love, the adults, they're not down with the surfing. Right. They're not down with the surf. So you just make sure it's age appropriate, or something that they would like to do. But then some of my older people, they want to see Charlie Wilson. Like, they were like 70, it's like, we're going to see Charlie, So you can't put them in a box. You open it up to everybody, right? And so even though it's limitless, if some of the adults want to go, I don't hinder that because they're young at heart, shall I say.
Yes.
Not limited.
So people that are just joining in, we're with Terri Thomas, who is the Executive Director of the Vision Resource Center. And earlier, Terri was telling us her journey from NC State University to becoming the Executive Director of the Vision Resource Center. So if you did not have the opportunity to hear her at the beginning, please make sure you go back and watch this, because I think as we were talking, people always think that running a nonprofit may not be as challenging, or they don't see how challenging it is behind the scenes. So Terri's given us a great outlook on some of the things that take place as the executive director of a nonprofit. So Terri, one of the things we were talking about earlier, and one of the things that I know that you do every year is one of your major fundraisers. The one that you used to do was the one about the dining out one where you dine blind, but because of COVID, things have to change a little bit. So tell me some of the things that you may be thinking about, or I think you're working on that right now.
Well, COVID has wiped out a couple of things, but what we have in this virtual age is our committee has come up with a virtual fundraiser. So October is Blindness Awareness Month. So the whole month of October, every week we're going to be doing something different that anybody that wants to join in, they can join in. So the first week, we're going to have a blind dine-in where people will send people out blindfolds, and they'll be able to send us the money that you would normally spend on your family for dinner. So we're going to send the blindfolds. People are going to video eating with their families and challenge another family. So we're going to get a Zoom going. Everybody's going to challenge. Like I say, Dr. Brenda, I'm going to challenge you and white, to do blindfolded. And then we're going to take pictures and video. And then the second week, we'll do a virtual 5K your way. We're getting a new walking trail. Excited about that. So people that want to walk the walking trail, at least 10 steps blindfolded, safety, of course, but then just do the 5K, your way to raise money, have a silent auction. And then the last week will be our virtual gala. So we'll have dueling DJs. We have our blind DJ, DJ Q, is going to go up against two other known DJs in the community. We'll have that going. A bartender doing virtual drinks. I think one of us is going to be like the magnifier or something. So we're going to do some virtual drinks. Guy from the band is going to do something for us. So we're going to try our hand at this thing. It's going to be like a Jerry Lewis telethon kind of.
Okay, yes.
So this is our first time. It's a little scary. That's another thing as executive director. You got to think out the box. Because you have to figure out a way to get money. In these times with COVID, everybody is tight on money. So you have to figure out a way to reach people, any way you can, to let them know the nonprofit still got to work. Like our mission is still needed. We have people at home that can't see. And if you think we're bored at home and tired, just think of what it's like for them. If you close your eyes right now and you're sitting in the house for I say 5 seconds, how would you feel in that 5 seconds? You know, so we got to keep running. And that's as executive director, you have to, it's not for the weak. I would tell anybody that's thinking about being an executive director, it's not for the weak. It's going to be times where the money might not be flowing like you want. I also say for those that believe it's a spiritual thing, you got to trust in something higher than you because it can get low, you know, and money might not right now without COVID funding, which we'll talk about, Dr. Belinda. COVID funding, we probably would not be making it as well as we're making it right now. You have to be on the cutting edge of things and getting ahead of them and getting good people on your team as well for your board and your committees because you can't do it by yourself. And so you have to be forward thinking. Like, this is so out of the box for me. I don't know what kind of return it's going to yield, but we're going to go 110% on it. But you have to believe that you got to do something because you can't let the people that you're serving down. It's bigger than you. That's the thing with nonprofit. People are depending on you to make sure that they're taken care of.
So Terri, if people wanted to know more about this fundraiser as it's coming up, how would they find out that information?
We're going to put some stuff on Facebook starting tomorrow, but you can always go to our website, and our website is www.visionresourcecentercc.org.
Okay, I'll make sure I put that up so people will have that. Vision Resource Center
CC, like for Cumberland County. .org.
Okay, so I'll get that up there. So I love what you said about the dinner and challenging people. So I'm definitely going to be telling Dwight that we're doing this and challenging a few other friends because I think it's so cool because now we have the opportunity. I know a lot of times I wanted to come to the dinner, but I was usually off on a college tour and couldn't come. And so this is a great way to be able to do it. And I'll also be able to challenge friends in other states because I love this because this is expanded. You know,
you'll be able to expand it.
Challenging people in other states and saying, "Hey, look, here's a way to give back," and put that out there. So yeah, so I'm definitely going to be up for that challenge. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So tell us about. So you mentioned the walk. So, and you're talking about getting a walking trail. So tell us about the campus where you are now, because it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, we are so excited. We paired with the county and the city, was the county property. And we're out on Cedar Creek Road. And it is a house. I mean, everybody said, we drove right past. It's a house. And it's a house that was an office for the county. And so we're out there now where we now have a kitchen for cooking, a multi-purpose room, which was the garage, again, forward thinking. And we made it into like a gym, multi-purpose area for our meetings and that type of thing, where we have dining and dinners and stuff. We have a volunteer room, a conference room, and we actually have offices and a wonderful outside area. So thanks to a wonderful foundation, they gave us money to do a walking trail because our folk, they like treadmills, but they like the outdoors. So we're going to do a walking trail where it's going to be even mesh gravel, and it's going to be wooded and all these types of things. So we are excited about the walking trail and getting some benches out there. So it's going to be a 3-mile trail where we can get your 5K in. So we are excited. We can kind of broadcast our new digs, with the walking trail, as well as have people doing some social outside stuff that plays along with COVID. So you're not all up under each other and putting that blindfold on for 10 steps to say, man, this is why the mission is so important of the VRC. This is why. And the we're going to do it on White Cane Day, which is October 15th, because White Cane is a symbolism of independence for people that are blind, are vision impaired. That becomes their eyes. They use it to kind of sweep. It's not a stick, as people call it. It's a cane. And that's how they kind of tell what's in front of them, to the side of them when they walk. So we're commemorating White Cane Day on October the 15th. So that'll be out at the center. So we're excited. I mean, I'm very excited about this new phase and reaching out.
That is so great. I love that idea. And I think one of the things that you said too that struck me is having the ability to think out of the box. When COVID hit, everyone had to go to a different place, had to figure out. I mean, for a while, we all kind of like stopped moving because we really didn't know what this was. And I know myself, I'm thinking, okay, maybe a couple of weeks or a month of being inconvenienced. And here we are now with tomorrow being September 1st, and life pretty much changed like as of, the middle of March. And so we've all had to learn how to pivot. And listening to you, you've taken your pivot and you're using it to the fullest to continue the mission, to continue helping the folks who use the services of the Vision Resource Center. Because I think one of the other things that you said that was really important was those of us that are sighted are finding this social isolation challenging. So imagine not having your sight and being home alone as an adult and trying to move through this. So again, I really appreciate what it is that you're doing out there for folks. And I think we don't always know the full mission of an organization. We don't always understand how valuable it is to the people that it serves. So I thank you so much for the work you do. I know, I love it when I see you around town, because you are the most enthusiastic, bubbly person that I've ever met in my life. You just keep it going. You just keep it going. So I know those folks are, I hope they understand how fortunate they are that your path took the turn so that you became the executive director of that Vision Resource Center, because you do have to have a certain personality to be able to continue with the nonprofit, especially in challenging times. And we're in challenging times right now. So you mentioned the having the ability to keep services going by getting some of the COVID money. Could you just talk a little bit about what you had to do, the paperwork that you had to do as a nonprofit in order to qualify for that?
I'm going to tell you, one of the biggest things too, is putting yourself out there. I can't tell you I was a big Facebook, Instagram, IG person, but what I can tell you is, as executive director, you have to. It becomes not about you and about the organization. Is if people don't come to you, you have to take your organization to people. So Facebook Live especially is a good way of showing what you're doing to the masses. So during COVID, one of my volunteers said, Terri, the food pantry giving us food, this, that, and the third. How can we utilize that? So out of COVID came our VRC on wheels. So we partnered with a few food pantries, and they gave us these humongous boxes of food and canned goods and different things like that. And we were able to then become VRC on wheels and take food to our VRC family members that are at home alone. So with that package, we put in masks, disinfectant, Lysol, toilet tissue, all the things that they would need that they couldn't necessarily go out and do. So as I continued to be on Facebook Live, I was then able to say, oh, United Way, do you have COVID funding? This is what we're doing. And they're like, well, apply for. I said, do you happen to have COVID money? See, again, stepping out the box. Yeah, we do. We're up for our second round of COVID money. All you got to do is let us know and say how you're going to use it. Easy for me to say how I was going to use it because I was doing it. So as a result, then Common Community Foundation said, hey, are you guys doing anything with cars? See on Facebook Live, you're doing some things with COVID. Yeah, we need money to do a conference call, free conference call, which we had to pay a little money for because we didn't want to use the code. Because when you're blind, you got to push all those numbers. So we were able to put in a conference call when you don't have a PIN number. They could just dial straight in. So that allowed us to do Bible study and VRC connections where we do breathing exercises, yoga to help with the anxiety of people at home. So COVID brought out some things that we didn't know would bring out, and we were able to reach our blind that had gotten going home with kids because they're older now, so they had to leave Fayetteville. So now they're able to chime in and still be a part. As of that, some of our blind folk that are in South Carolina, Florida, they're sending in donations. Keep up the good work. Who knew that?
Exactly.
Not the intent. It was just to reach people. So when you put yourself, because sometimes people aren't going to come to you. You got to figure out how to go to them and show them your mission. And that's what Facebook Live does. So it does have benefit. This virtual stuff it does have a benefit.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so great that you mentioned that, because I think one of the things we've all, like we said, we've all learned how to do is pivot during this, and we've learned to harness the power of social media in order to help us get the word out for things. I know one of the things when I decided, when everything went COVID and things changed, so I work with students getting them ready for college. But one of the things I wanted to do is that I'm always talking to my kids about, you've got to think about what problems you want to solve, who do you want to help, instead of what is it I want to major in. Let's think about all the issues that are out there. How do you want to contribute? So my part has been interviewing folks like you who are out there doing the work, and I'm really focused partly on interviewing Black and Brown people, because I really want our students, based on, we've got two pandemics going on. We've got a viral pandemic going on, and we have a racial pandemic going on. And I think it's really important for all people to see that Black and Brown people are working in all types of careers, and pathways are open to all folks. So that's my soapbox for this evening. But but
it's a good soapbox, because Dr. B, I think about if I would have waited a year or just went into college not knowing and following what my passion was. I mean, I was that's been 10 years ago. I was 40 when I followed my passion. Just think of what I could have been at 25, 30. It's something, and then taking your passion or taking what you're about, like you say, all the social injustice, like using your platform. Like, I believe in voting. So I don't tell you who to vote for, but I take my platform to make sure I get people out to vote. We have veins. So I make sure we do that, or to advocate for yourself. I love advocating and going to city council meetings and county commissioners meetings. So I take that into advocacy. So anything you do, you can take a part of you with that in whatever it is you do or decide to do.
That is so true. That is so true. Well, one thing I do want to just talk about quickly. So one of the things I always like to do in our college conversations, and this is where, you talk about being an advocate for something that's a strong interest. I am a strong advocate of literacy, of people reading. I think it's probably one of the most important things that we can do as a educated citizenry is to read. With that being said, I'm putting on my hat now as the chair of the Board of Trustees for the Cumberland County Public Library System. And I encourage everyone to use their library system, because there are so many resources there for you. Right now, you can get curbside service. So you can go online, you can choose the book that you want, and you will get an email or a phone call, however you set it up, or a text telling you that your book is ready. And there's curbside service at each one of the branches. They're doing virtual storytelling. So there's so many opportunities to do it. But one of the things I do want to do is just to highlight a book. And this is the book for this week. And again, in talking with Terri, and as she's telling us how it's important to have these conversations with people who may be helping to fund your nonprofit. This is a book that I read a few years ago and had the opportunity to go to a luncheon where the author was speaking. It's called The Fine Art of Small Talk: How to Start a Conversation, Keep It Going, Build Networking Skills, and Leave a Positive Impression. And it's by Debra. So I really think this is a great book to get you started if you're a little nervous about out there doing that networking, because it is so important to be able to have those conversations with people, so that people understand what your mission is, what your work is about, and what you're about. So again, this is also available at the library, but as I said, use that public library system, because your taxes are paying for it. So use it. Use it to the fullest. The librarians in our system are absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure librarians in every system are fantastic. If I had become a teacher, I probably would have been either a librarian or a bookstore owner. one of those two, just so I could be around books all day. That would be really grade. As it is, I've got them all over the place here that my kind of like, don't bring any more books in this house, but that's how that goes. So, so Terri, what advice would you give to someone who was thinking about starting a nonprofit?
Man, if you're thinking about starting a nonprofit, do your research. The biggest thing is do your research and make sure that it's not a need that's already filled. Make sure that you fill a niche that's not filled, because then you're competing against money with other people. Find out, find out what's not already being done. A lot of people say, well, I could do it better. But once you do something that somebody else is doing, that may cut your money or not get any money, that kind of thing. Also find out what's out there in terms of funding, because a lot of times people want to know that you can make it on your own before they can give you the money. So you got to make sure that there's a funding stream for you, that there's a need out there, that there's a need out there. One thing that I know is a need, anybody that's out there with juvenile delinquency and stuff like that, there's money out there with the county. A lot of people don't know about that, but it's a needed thing to be able to help our kids before, not when they get out there, to be able to do stuff for our kids before they even think about getting into trouble. But do your research on what the needs are. And then one of my biggest quotes is significance over success.
Okay.
Significance over success. Have everything where you are making a difference. If you do what it is you're supposed to do to live out whatever your nonprofit mission is, the money will come, the people will come, all that will come. You just have to be able to believe in your mission and trust it and make it a mission that is not being filled. Right now, Vision Resource Center, we're the only nonprofit of our kind between here in Wake County and Mecklenburg County that helps blind people. I did not start the Vision Resource Center. I'm an employee, but what I know about nonprofits is fill a niche that is not being filled, and do your research. I mean, that's the thing. Don't go in blindsided. Have it together and start talking to people about it. Not to don't be fearful that somebody's going to take your idea, because there's a lot of work involved, and it costs money to start a nonprofit. But kind of get your fillers out there for if it will work, and don't be upset if people say, that'll never work. Don't let it deter you, but think about what they're saying and still go for it if it makes sense. That's the biggest, that's what I would say.
Okay, thank you for that. That's so important for people to understand. So out of the work that you've been doing, because you've been doing this for how many years now?
10 years.
Okay. What is the most fun activity that you've had with working with your clients?
Okay, for the kids, it's definitely the surfing event. Definitely, because we deal with Ocean Cure and they do tandem surfing, so they're not going way out in the ocean. It's like kind of up close, and the kids will get on the surfboard. Ocean Cure staff will get on the back and ride the wave in, and it is so energizing and thrilling to see the kids do it. For the adults, the winery, that is the most funny bit. People say, my friends, tell you going to take them down there drinking. I said, they're 21 and they're not driving. But they get out there and they dance with each other. They have a good time. Some drink wine, some don't. You can bring your food in. It's a time to socialize and let your hair down. And they learn to line dance. So that, I think, is the most fun event that we do with the winery for our people, because I get to sit back and watch them interact with each other. And then some of the people at the winery, they'll come up and ask them to dance. And it is so nice down there in Wagram. I would tell anybody, even if you just want to go on a nice date night, or girls, they are so nice down there. It's no violence. It's just a nice, once COVID is over, it's a nice thing. But the surfing and the winery are hands down. Those are the two funnest ones.
That sounds so cool. The opportunities that you're giving to folks, because again, there's so much we take for granted. There is so much we take for granted. I mean, we just lost Chadwick Boseman, who was a hero to so many of us. And if anything else, you feel gratitude for your health. You feel gratitude for what you have in this life. I mean, he definitely made his mark on our society, not just as an actor, but also as a person who lived his life with dignity in a way that we didn't know what was going on.
No.
Stores. And just like with the folks that are visually impaired, we don't know what's going on in their lives because we're not experiencing it from their perspective. So I am so thrilled that folks are able to get the services they need with your help. And I thank you so much for all that you do in the community. And I know the community members are certainly thrilled that you're the person that's leading the Vision Resource Center, because I think so much of its success has to do with your tenacity, with your determination, with your professionalism, and just with your enthusiasm for doing good. And so thank you so much, Terri, for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Dr. B, for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. And folks, I'm going to put this banner up here one more time. So I want you to make sure that you're paying attention and you're looking for information about the fundraiser that's coming up. You can also find the Vision Resource Center on Facebook, but this is their webpage. So you can definitely go to their webpage and figure out how to do it. And for some of you listeners out there, some of my regular listeners, I'm going to be challenging you to that blind dinner. So look out for it. So look out. Yes, I will be challenging you, and we'll be filming ourselves. You know, we've all become Zoom proficient, so we will know how to do this.
Yes.
So, Terri, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you need to be somewhere doing something. So I thank you so much for sharing of yourself so that students can learn a little bit more about what it takes to run a nonprofit. So as they're thinking about it, they can have some real life lessons right here with you. So folks, I will see you next Monday at 7 p.m., same time, with College Conversations. So folks, take care and see you next week.